Good morning. My name is Brian Lewis, and I'm a military and veterans law attorney in St. Paul, Minnesota. I was asked by Ms. Rhea Chappelle to make this video and talk a few minutes about how Dr. Santos's work has been particularly impactful to veterans in general, but also to veterans who have survived military sexual trauma. I really want to thank Ms. Rita for asking me to make this video. She's a very strong and powerful leader. She's constantly thinking of how to do things better, and I can't thank her enough. I also like to recognize any leadership of the Philadelphia VA healthcare system in attendance. Through your leadership, veterans are being motivated by individual practitioners or teams of practitioners to go out and do these things, such as Dr. Santos has done, and we can't thank you enough for that. So I've only known Dr. Santos about 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more. I really didn't want to talk about numbers today, but yeah, I can't get around it. I'm sorry, Kathy, I really am, but that's where we're at. So 30 years ago, uh, Dr. Santos did something really forward thinking and a little bit ahead of the times. She provided testimony to Congress that led to VA being mandated to create women's clinics to screen and to treat survivors of military sexual trauma. Now, back then, that last part was limited basically to female survivors. It wasn't for a few more years after that that men were brought into the fold. Um, and I don't want to get started about how men are still underrepresented in that area, but it was Dr. Santos's forward leadership, forward researching, and forward thinking presence that motivated Congress to make these changes. And indeed, with the creation of women veterans clinics, we've seen a lot of revolutionary steps from that. We've seen We've seen women veterans who are now being rated for things such as female sexual arousal disorder. We've seen VA begin treating women veterans with dignity, respect, providing them a safe and effective place to be seen, to be treated, and to be recognized for their service. That's still something that's sorely needed even in this stage of the game. But it's really in military sexual trauma where Dr. Santos has made a lot of impact. Her long history of just being able to reach out and build and connect people into communities. When I first met her, this was in 2011, 2012, when I first met her in person at the Service Women Action Network conference in DC. And there were two of them, one in 1 year, one in the next. And Dr. Santos was sitting there asking really insightful questions of all the attendees. I was privileged to speak, and Dr. Santos challenged my thinking around military sexual assault survivors. And even though we didn't agree on a few things at that time, we both became dedicated to the idea, and I think she'd been dedicated for a while by that point, of really using the research to drive the goals. Sometimes military sexual trauma survivors can be a little bit emotional. But Dr. Santos really stuck to the numbers. And she is an effective leader for many, many decades around the idea that trauma survivors should have a voice at all the big tables. And she strove her best to make that happen. I also would not be doing her justice if I didn't talk for a minute about veterans and people of color in general. Dr. Santos has been a thought leader in that space, talking about the needs of people and survivors of color to step forward, to be counted, to have a space. As she's sometimes said that sharp elbows can create the space that's needed, and it's true. Sometimes she can be perceived as a little bit irreverent. But she always has a smile to bring to that. And I grew to respect that. And we became friends. And I've worked with her on a few things. And she's always a joy to work with, because you know you're going to have an exchange of ideas that are driven by data, by science, but also by a human connection. There's going to be that human element that she effectively marries to the numbers to create a more holistic experience. I think the other thing that makes her particularly impactful is that she is not afraid to go into those dark colored boardrooms, proudly stand there, proudly proclaim her womanhood, and proudly stand up for each and everything that she believes in, even if it's not the most politically expedient thing. I'm looking at the clock and I'm almost out of time, but to Dr. Santos, Kathy, I'm real glad the VA in Philadelphia is honoring you for this. I hope to be out in the DC, Baltimore area a lot over the next couple of months. I'd really love to see you in person just to share some laughs. And congratulations for all you've done. I'd like to say that I think your next decade or so is going to be a lot more impactful than the last few. I'd also like to really thank Ms. Rita Chappelle. She's a force of nature, and seeing her and being asked by her to be in this brought a real smile to my face. And Kathy, I hope you have a real wonderful 29th birthday coming up real soon. Thank you, everyone, and I hope that the rest of the celebration goes as swimmingly as the last little bit has been. Thank you much, and y'all have a good one now.